Every level of Mr. Olympia explained. Level 1. The origins began in 1965 when Joe Weider launched the Mr. Olympia competition to give professional bodybuilders a stage beyond amateur contests like Mr. Universe. The first champion was Larry Scott, who won in 1965 and 1966. Known as the Golden Boy, Scott became famous for his round muscle bellies, broad shoulders, and narrow waist. His preacher curl technique was so iconic it was renamed the Scott Curl, and his balanced, photogenic look set the first real standard for Olympia physiques. Scott showed the world that bodybuilding was about more than bulk. It was about symmetry, proportion, and presentation. From 1967 to 1969, Sergio Oliva took over the title. Nicknamed The Myth, Oliva brought unprecedented size and a dramatic V-taper that seemed almost unreal. His combination of wide lats, small waist, and dense muscle mass pushed bodybuilding into new territory. Fans witnessed legendary battles between Oliva and young Arnold Schwarzenegger, where size clashed with emerging star power. Oliva's dominance represented a leap forward. Bodybuilding was no longer just about aesthetics. It was about how far human muscle could be pushed. Together, Scott and Oliva defined the foundation of Olympia history, proving that the competition would set the highest standards for both beauty and innovation in physique development. Level 2. The Golden Era defined bodybuilding's most celebrated period, with Arnold Schwarzenegger at its center. Arnold won the Mr. Olympia 7 times between 1970 and 1980, showcasing a physique that blended mass, symmetry, and presentation in a way no one had before. His broad chest, towering arms, and narrow waist created an iconic silhouette that became the global image of bodybuilding. Beyond muscle, Arnold's charisma and stage presence elevated the sport into mainstream culture, with the documentary Pumping Iron, 1977, cementing him as a household name. His victories proved that Olympia success required not only physical development, but also the ability to inspire and captivate audiences worldwide. Another key figure of this decade was Franco Columbu, a 2-time Olympia winner. Though shorter in height, Columbu built a dense, powerful physique that matched his remarkable strength. His back and chest development stood out, and his determination proved that stature was not a limitation on the Olympia stage. The Arnold vs. Franco partnership, combined with Sergio Oliva's last battles against Arnold in 1970 to 1972, gave the era its dramatic rivalries. Training in this era emphasized high volume, camaraderie in iconic gyms like Gold's Gym, and the pursuit of physiques that looked both powerful and beautiful. This period cemented bodybuilding as both a sport and a global spectacle. Level 3. The mass builders marked a new shift in bodybuilding where sheer muscle size began to dominate the stage. The standout champion was Lee Haney, who won 8 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles from 1984 to 1991. Haney combined incredible mass with balanced proportions, bringing a fuller, rounder look that redefined what judges were looking for. His training emphasized heavy compound lifts with strategic volume, allowing him to maintain size without sacrificing symmetry. Haney's reign proved that bodybuilding had moved beyond just aesthetics. It was now about building the biggest, most commanding physique possible. Another key figure of this era was Samir Banaut, who won the 1983 Mr. Olympia. Banaut was nicknamed the Lion of Lebanon and became famous for his razor-sharp conditioning and striated muscle detail, especially in his back and chest. His victory showed that mass alone was not enough. Conditioning and definition were equally critical. Rivalries of this era included Haney's battles with Rich Gaspari and Lee Labrada, athletes who brought extreme conditioning and aesthetics to challenge his dominance. Together, Haney and Banaut symbolized the balance of size and refinement, but Haney's dominance made mass building the defining trend of the decade. Level 3 set the stage for the even more extreme physiques that would follow in the 1990s. Level 4, the Freak Era, marked the arrival of physiques that pushed bodybuilding into unprecedented extremes. The dominant figure of this decade was Dorian Yates, who won 6 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles from 1992 to 1997. Yates introduced a look that was far beyond anything seen before. Massive size combined with grainy, shredded conditioning. His back development, with unparalleled width and thickness, became a benchmark that redefined bodybuilding standards. Yates trained using a high-intensity, low-volume system, focusing on maximum effort and progressive overload in every set. This approach produced dense muscle mass and ushered in an era where bodybuilders were judged not only by symmetry, but also by their ability to look shockingly powerful on stage. The Freak Era earned its name because competitors were now expected to carry extreme levels of muscle that dwarfed the champions of previous decades. Rivalries between Yates, Shawn Ray, Kevin Levrone, and Flex Wheeler gave the era intensity, but Yates's granite-hard conditioning and size always prevailed. The 1990s also saw bodybuilding's image shift. Magazines like Flex highlighted grainy photography of massive physiques, creating an underground hardcore aura around the sport. Yates's dominance showed that the Olympia was now about who could present the most overwhelming size and conditioning, even if aesthetic flow was sacrificed. Level 4 became the turning point where bodybuilding entered the age of the freaks. Level 5. The Monster Era was defined by bodybuilders who took the extreme size of the Freak Era and pushed it to almost unimaginable levels. The face of this decade was Ronnie Coleman, who won 8 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles from 1998 to 2005. Coleman combined enormous size with surprising conditioning, standing on stage at over 290 pounds of shredded muscle. His back, legs, and overall density were unmatched, and his training videos, featuring 800-pound squats and deadlifts, became legendary, showing fans a man who lifted as freakishly as he looked. Coleman embodied the idea of a true mass monster, pushing the human body to limits many thought were impossible. After Coleman, Cutler rose to prominence, ending Ronnie's reign by winning the 2006 Olympia and eventually securing 4 titles. Cutler carried massive size with wide shoulders, thick legs, and a balanced presentation that gave him a blocky but dominant look. The Coleman versus Cutler rivalry defined the 2000s, with 2 of the largest physiques in history trading victories. This was the decade where bodybuilding celebrated bigger is better to the fullest. Level 5 represented the peak of extreme muscular development, where competitors weren't just large, they were larger than life. Level 6. The aesthetic revival brought bodybuilding back toward balance after the extreme mass of the 1990s and 2000s. The dominant champion of this period was Heath, who won 7 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles from 2011 to 2017. Heath, nicknamed The Gift, showcased a physique that combined size with round, full muscle bellies, razor-sharp conditioning, and near-flawless symmetry. Unlike the blockier physiques of the Monster Era, his body flowed smoothly from top to bottom, with capped shoulders, narrow waist, and detailed separation that made him appear sculpted. Heath's dominance highlighted a renewed emphasis on aesthetics alongside size, showing that bodybuilding had evolved into a balance of both. Other contenders of this era, like Kai Greene, became cultural icons thanks to their artistic posing and dramatic rivalry with Heath. Their head-to-head battles, especially in 2014, gave fans some of the most exciting showdowns in Olympia history. This decade also coincided with the rise of social media, where athletes could build massive followings outside of competitions, shifting how bodybuilding reached the public. The rivalries of the 2000s reflected a sport that was recalibrating, still massive in scale but rewarding structure, proportion, and detail more than ever before. Level 6 marked the return of beauty to the muscle, re-establishing bodybuilding as not only a contest of size, but also of aesthetic perfection. Level 7, the modern hybrids, represents today's evolution of bodybuilding, where athletes must balance the extreme size of past eras with the aesthetics and symmetry of the Golden Age. The champions of this period include Mamdou Elsbié, better known as Big Ramy, who won the Olympia in 2020 and 2021. Ramy brought overwhelming mass to the stage, competing at over 300 pounds, but with enough conditioning to dominate the field. His victories showed that size still mattered, but proportion and presentation could not be ignored. Following him, Hadi Choopan captured the Olympia title in 2022, representing a shift toward sharper conditioning and overall completeness. Known as the Persian Wolf, Choopan's physique combined dense muscle with crisp detail and stage presence that resonated with judges. In 2023, Derek Lunsford made history as the first man to win both the 212 Olympia and the Open Mr. Olympia, proving that hybrid physiques, balanced, aesthetic, but still massive, are the future of the sport. The modern stage is shaped not just by competition, but by Instagram, YouTube, and global audiences who demand both freakish size and flowing aesthetics. Level 7 proves that bodybuilding has evolved into a test of the complete athlete, where only those who embody the best of every past era can stand at the top.